Hey movie lovers, today we're breaking down the story of Don't Breathe 2, a chilling tale of survival, revenge, and redemption, where the blind see more than you think. Let's dive in. The story begins with the haunting sight of a blazing house, flames engulfing everything as thick smoke fills the air. The only survivor is a fainted young girl, stumbling down the empty, desolate streets of a semi-abandoned neighborhood. This haunting scene sets the stage for a tale of survival and redemption. 8 years later, we find Phoenix, now a young girl, sprinting through a dense forest. A vicious dog chases her, barking ferociously, as she desperately tries to outrun it. She reaches an old, abandoned car, grabbing a gun left on the seat, her hands trembling. But before she can act, Norman Nordstrom, a former Navy SEAL but now a blind man who has raised her like a father, appears and grabs her from behind. He tells her she has failed her survival test. This is how Norman has raised Phoenix, training her to survive in a brutal world, drilling into her the skills she might need to stay alive. Yet, his overprotectiveness weighs on her. Back at their secluded home, Phoenix's curiosity about her past begins to surface. She asks Norman about her mother, questioning why there are no pictures of her. Norman solemnly explains that their old house burned down in a terrible fire 8 years ago, destroying everything except her. She presses him to let her leave the house and go to the city, longing to escape her isolation, but Norman refuses. He claims she isn't ready yet, having failed his survival test. Hernandez, Norman's only connection with society and a veteran Army Ranger, finally convinces Norman to let Phoenix accompany her on an errand in town to have some time out of the house. Hernandez takes Phoenix to the ruins of her old house, the one that burned down, hoping to give her some closure. However, Phoenix senses something is off. She feels as though someone is watching her. Disturbed, she quickly gets out and goes to the playground. Inside one of the shop, they hear a news report warning of a dangerous gang that kidnaps children to harvest their organs. This chilling announcement sets an ominous tone for what's about to unfold. Later, after Hernandez drives Phoenix home, she encounters trouble. Car blocks the road. Sensing danger, she grabs her gun and confronts the occupants of the car, warning them to move. As she turns back toward her own vehicle, a man ambushes her, striking her violently with a hammer. Hernandez falls lifeless to the ground. The gang has made their move. Back at home, Phoenix argues with Norman, frustrated by his rules and isolation. Norman, in turn, reveals his fear of losing her, just as he lost someone else long ago. As they talk, Norman's dog, sensing danger, disappears into the forest. Moments later, Norman realizes the dog has been killed, and he braces for an attack. The gang invades their home with military precision, exploiting Norman's blindness to their advantage. One gang member begins searching upstairs, where Phoenix is hiding under her bed. Hearing the intruder's heavy footsteps, she slips out and hides inside a cupboard, clutching a watch to distract him. Timing her move perfectly, she sneaks out of the room and makes her way to the basement. There, she hides inside a metal box, her breath shallow as the gang closes in. The gang discovers Phoenix's hiding spot and begins flooding the box with water, hoping to force her out or drown her. Meanwhile, Norman, enraged by the death of his dog and the threat to Phoenix, uses his cunning to outmaneuver the attackers. In the garage, he confronts one gang member, suffocating him by clamping his hand tightly over the man's nose and mouth and leaves it glued. He eliminates another by luring him into a trap and incapacitating him with swift, calculated strikes. Norman then faces Duke, one of the gang's most dangerous members, in a flooded room. The two engage in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Duke, stronger and younger, overpowers Norman at first, pinning him against the wall. But Norman uses his environment to his advantage. As water rises dangerously high, he grabs a live power cord and throws it into the water, causing a massive explosion. The blast kills Duke, but Norman barely escapes with his life. Raylan sets his own dog to kill Norman, who traps the animal in the attic. The gang sets the house on fire and leaves with Phoenix. Norman befriends the dog as they escape together, and it leads him to the gang's hotel hideout. Despite his efforts, the gang's leader, Ray, captures Phoenix and reveals a shocking truth. He is her biological father and her real name is Tara. He explains that he went to prison 8 years ago, leaving Tara behind. Norman found her in the burned house and raised her as his own. Ray takes Tara to his hideout, where she meets his gravely ill wife, who claims to be her real mother. She explains that she triggered the explosion while cooking meth, resulting in the poisoning of her internal organs. Tara's parents have abducted her in order to transplant her compatible organs for Tara's mother, due to a lack of drugs and facilities, but Phoenix is already drugged with tainted juice and prepared for surgery. Norman, guided by his dog, tracks the gang to their hideout. His approach is stealthy and deadly, eliminating gang members one by one. He uses his heightened senses to detect movement and sound, striking from the shadows. Raul, a reluctant member of the gang, sympathizes with Tara and secretly helps Norman. The climax unfolds in a gas-filled room where Ray accidentally shoots his wife during a chaotic firefight. Phoenix, trapped with her mother's body, struggles to free herself. Meanwhile, Norman confronts Ray in a vicious showdown. Despite being blinded years ago, Norman uses his acute senses and tactical prowess to gain the upper hand. He blinds Ray by gouging his eyes, leaving him to experience the same darkness Norman has lived with. As Ray flails in pain, Tara finally escapes the pool where she had been trapped. But Ray, in a final act of desperation, attacks Norman. Tara, summoning her courage, kills Ray to save the man who raised her. In his dying moments, Norman confesses his dark past to Tara. He admits to being a flawed, violent man and tells her she deserves a better life without him. Tara tearfully forgives him, but he succumbs to his injuries, leaving her to face the world on her own. In the end, Tara returns to the city. She introduces herself to a group of children at the orphanage by her true name, Phoenix Nordstrom. Reborn from the ashes of her harrowing journey, she begins a new chapter, no longer defined by her past but by her strength and resilience. Please like and subscribe.